Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, Micah Hudson is a Red Raider again. Will the juice be worth the squeeze? And other citrus-related analogies. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On. That's Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan coming in hot on the fly episode for your weekend consumption. And this is a result of an old friend becoming a new friend again. Micah Hudson has now announced his intention to become a Red Raider once again. Chris, we don't do many emergency episodes for transfers or guys that have essentially made no dent on the college level as a football player, but this one is a little atypical, obviously. We're talking about a former five-star recruit, talking about a guy who did get on the field as a freshman, but obviously we didn't see that come to fruition like we had hoped. He transfers, he becomes an Aggie for about 15 minutes, and somehow, some way, we wind up with this reunion, though maybe somewhat expected, actually still happening. So some thoughts to get to in this conversation we'll have here today as to what this actually means regarding the fit. And I think there's a fair question. I've already heard from a lot of Tech fans. Is this juice going to be worth the squeeze, or is the drama going to be too much to bear? So we'll chop some of that up, but initial thoughts in reaction to this now being official. Micah Hudson is headed to Texas Tech.
Yeah, this is. I don't know if you and I have been doing this in some capacity for some medium for, I don't know, what are we talking, 20 years?
We don't have to, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I've ever, and I bet you're going to say the same, talked about a player more than do you remember, this is for different reasons, but I'll just throw this one out there because this is for some OGs out there. Remember the offseason of the recruitment regarding Bobby Agucha?
Of course.
There was so much excitement and so much. Now, he wasn't anywhere near ranked what Micah Hudson was, but he got so much talk in our world because you were starving for a big D tackle, and he said the right things, and then he just came here, and it just wasn't anything. But and to this point, that's kind of been what Micah Hudson's scenario has been, although with much more fanfare, especially regionally and nationally. This isn't a surprise. We've tried to tell you this for many weeks now that it wasn't going to be a surprise. I can't tell you for certain if he's scholarship or walk-on. At this point, it doesn't really matter. He's announced that he's back. I'll let them sort that out. I still think they could be over on numbers, which leads me to believe that he may be a walk-on, which is what we had kind of hinted at. I think I think for both parties, I'm not so certain that him leaving here wasn't the best thing. And let me explain. The PR part of this, really for both parties, sucked. You got dragged. The player got dragged. The school, the coaching staff, the head coach, everybody was pointed at, made fun of. You fumbled it. You screwed it up. You were an embarrassment. How in the world could you do this? What is going on? Then as it played out, then I think people started to see some things, with Micah and all that. And then I think he gets heavily criticized, or he's heavily questioned out there in the ether. I will tell you too, remember that graphic that started going viral about he needed Denali to pick him up every day, and he needed there was like this long list of things. You remember this?
Oh, yeah.
There are actually people out there that believe that to be true, or believed it to be true. That couldn't be further from the truth. Okay, so this was never about anything like that. So, but people can believe and choose to believe whatever they want. I saw it. It was on the internet. It must be true. This had nothing to do with anything like that, or even anything remotely close to that. But I think that the return here, Micah 2.0, comes back. I'll use some words here, and I can't say that these are like dead on accurate, but this is my view of things. I think he comes back humbled. I think you aren't sure what you've got till you don't have it, and I think he had people here that cared about him. I think that there was an immense amount of pressure on him. I think that Micah had that. I think Tech probably did, some things because they were excited about him, and it was the 5-star recruit, and so I think a lot of that worked against him and worked against Tech in this first marriage. I think it was a lot too soon, and he wasn't really allowed to, ease into this, and then I think it just kind of unraveled a bit in October-ish, November-ish, and then it was just kind of there was some anger, and then there was some disagreements, and then there was some kind of whether it's blaming or just like, man, I just don't know if this is the place for me. Okay, so all that, and then I think you kind of everybody there was just a sour on both sides of it a bit, but not enough to where you say, hey man, there's an olive branch here. If you want to take it, we still see all the things, we still care about you, and I think Micah has maybe chosen who he has surrounded himself with. That's a bit different now than it was before. And I think that's an important component too, but he's going to come into it. Well, and I don't want to get too far ahead here, Cowan, but yeah, I think this is the split, as painful and public as it was, theoretically it could end up being what's best for both parties. And we'll see in time. Hopefully I explained my situation there, or my thought there appropriately. But anyway, we'll keep going here.
The most optimistic scenario is, there was a lesson here for everybody involved, and we'll be better off the next time around. Some taking that approach, some still skeptical. I think I would understand either approach, because there were a lot of dramatics obviously to this, and some theatrics. And you remember prior to him becoming a Red Raider the first time around, he's trolling people in this way or that way online, and there's yada yada yada, this sort of layer that's always been there with him. So I get it if some are skeptical, but I think in general, rolling the dice with a talent like this, happy to have a second chance here for him in Lubbock. He was going to get one somewhere, and I'm glad he's going to have the opportunity to blow up or not do anything right here in the 806, because that talent obviously is very, very hard to find. I had a early flash poll from some of our friends inside the Matador Mob when asking concerned about the juice level as it relates to the squeeze. Are you just happy to have a 5-star back? And there were some varying takes. Roan says he's got a ton of talent. Think his mentality will be much different this time around. Rusty says, I love it. LFG, which I think means let's find gold. James says more talent is better than less talent. Also had Ryan saying it's better to have him as an option than not. I think this was a good question as well. Let's see. I believe it was from Christopher, who asked, can Micah Hudson play point guard? Maybe a segment for a different episode of Locked On Texas Tech. But there are plenty also just saying, basically in Joey we trust, to the extent of this thought here, I believe coming from, let's see here. This was from Lucas, who says, I don't think Joey would have kept the door open if he didn't feel like there was some positive part of the relationship still kind of intact. So for whatever it's worth, would love to hear from you in the YouTube comments, how you're feeling out there about it. I'm sure there will be varying opinions, but I think, again, Chris, as far as the talent level is concerned, if you can find a path back to agreement, then let's roll the dice with a guy like this.
And Calvin, I think as you step back and look at it, you say in Joey we trust. I can't even say with 100% certainty that everybody would have been in agreement on the in the football program internally, player, coach, whatever, just based on kind of how it went, and some of those pieces have changed. now, whether there's some players that aren't on the team anymore, there's some coaches that aren't on the team anymore. And so there's some of these guys who are like, I don't have any prior knowledge of what went on, including the offensive coordinator. So it's open arms, but some of the players, but I think in Joey we trust. Okay, so let's touch on that for a second.
First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and the NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on all the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet hits. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to really win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
And Joey we trust. Okay, so let's touch on that for a second, because I think that if that was the case and not everybody's necessarily all on the same page, this is something that has been vetted, probably continues to be worked through, all the things. And I think if you have people with a common goal and you have you put the ego off to the side, regardless of who this is, whether it be Micah or teammate or assistant coach or whatever. And if everybody can learn a bit here, and you start rowing the same direction, then I think there, it could be a lot of fun. Because I think that the way this is played out now, Micah's right, wrong, or indifferent, there will be people now that give it pause if he were to get into the portal again for whatever reason. I think that would, it's been, and here's the other thing about him that's so weird is that, it's for all the chatter during his recruitment or some of the, trolling, I think is what you said. He's pretty much off or very under the radar on any kind of social media. This is why I think that the Utah visit was misreported, because there's nobody there to clarify, to say, hey, this is what's happening, this is not what's happening, or whatever. And I think that's what leads to a lot of the speculation or a lot of the connecting dots, whether they're there or not there, because he's just kind of been under the radar. Now, the real question here is that too, and I think we need to be very clear, what is Texas Tech getting in Micah Hudson right now? How does it affect the 2025 football season? And that's a conversation that's, I think, a very important one. And that's part of why I think that leaving and coming back and hitting the reset button, as painful as it was and public as it was, he comes back in here now, I think, with far fewer immediate expectations. Is there a need here? Absolutely. You're still on the hunt for receivers right now. File it away. Might not have to wait much longer. File it away.
He's leaning into the camera, folks. He's leaning.
This doesn't. This doesn't affect that. But if you just look at your receivers right now, I mean, you're going to graduate Reggie Virgil. You're going to graduate Caleb Douglas. McCoy Aiken is all of a sudden about to be like an upperclassman. Then what? Then you start talking about Morgan and Valson and West and Stone and Deaver, and you've got a bunch of young receivers. Turner is another one. They're all unproven. He will fit in that group, and I think that's why there's some need there to go get some more experience, and then you're still looking for an answer at slot and all the things, and this is a different scheme, but he's going to come into a situation where it is a new offense, Cowan, and it's one where he's going to have missed 15 spring practices. So this will be a slower process than maybe some are okay with, but I hope that you are, because this isn't. Everybody shouldn't be asking about Micah Hudson every single week. Why is he not playing? What's going on with him? Is he happy? Is he unhappy? Why are they not throwing him the ball? It just needs to, I think for all involved here, this is going to be a slower, I mean, he may, for all we know, be a walk-on, as we've hinted at. So This is far different situation. And I think all of this is great for him. I think he doesn't need that pressure. And again, I sound like a parent or something, and I'm not trying to come off as like get off my lawn guy. I'm just saying I think that is what's best for this young man. I think he had an immense amount of pressure. I'm not saying he won't factor in to the team this season. I just think if your expectations are he's going to come in and start, he's catching 80 passes, I think you're going to be very disappointed. But the talent is there. And otherwise, you don't go through all this. And the other thing is, this isn't the fastest player. Like there's a misnomer here with Micah Hudson. He's some burner. That is not who he is. He got caught from behind by North Texas DB when he could have scored earlier in the non-conference last year. The ball skills, otherworldly. I think route running is something he needs to get better at, and he's going to have to learn a new scheme. But like some of the talent, though, it's just unquestioned. And anyway, I'm trying to give you all sides of it, and I'm trying to give you a realistic picture of the way I think they view it, and I think the way that Micah and his much smaller camp view it.
There's no question there's got to be an updated expectation. I mean, it's not even near the same circumstance. Some aspects you may feel better about, actually. Some you may feel like this is now a greater challenge to factor in whatever way. But I got to tell you, I was pretty skeptical. I don't know how skeptical I was on the odds necessarily, but I was kind of tuned out of the Micah Hudson story outside of our very enjoyable conversations on this program. He was not someone I was thinking about really at all from a football standpoint because, man, it was one of the biggest burnouts we had seen in about a semester span. And so it was out of sight, out of mind kind of to me. We talked about it almost every week because people were rightfully so asking about it. But to me, it's just kind of a bonus, Chris, if you're able to get this guy in and factor in any significant way. And I don't really even just mean this season. I mean in general. If he becomes a productive college football player and he can do it here at Texas Tech, to me, that's sort of a bonus. Just the way I see it as a fan. Some might have much higher expectations, but I'll be right there with that slow build that you're describing this season as far as what I'm looking for.
Because keep in mind, he's about to, now that he's announced he's back, and I thought his statement was very humble, and I think that's the first sign. I think his statement was, basically there's people here that care about me. I've got unfinished business. I think he's in it for the long haul, and I think that the football program is now well aware. Like, everybody knows the dynamic. Okay, but what you have to remember is he's now missed both springs that he was here. This isn't a player that's played a lot of reps. He missed some of fall camp last year. So this isn't really even a player that's practiced a ton for you while here.
Well, and Chris, as the season went on, wasn't that lessened Monday through Friday? I mean,
yes. And then he kind of had the injury, whether serious or not, or whether there's all these theories out there about everything. But I think that you've got a realization of we need each other. Let's put everything aside. Let's all grow up. Let's all get past our egos and everything that's in the past, because none of us can change it. And let's try to play. Let's try to coach. Let's try to teammate together, and let's try to kind of common goal this thing. And let's see if we can't squeeze the most out of you, and you can't squeeze the most out of this football program if you're Micah Hudson. This will make a lot of news. This is what comes with being a 5-star prospect when there's not that many out in the country. But this is the start of the process. And keep in mind, I will flat out tell you that, say, mid to late February, early March, whatever it was, somewhere in that time frame, this is a football program that wasn't even considering or factoring Micah Hudson into anything that they were doing, whether it was currently, in the future, whatever. It was like, hey, man, so – but I think the olive branch was extended, and I think this has taken a while to get it, because he's been in Lubbock for about a week or so, and I think that's where some of the I don't want to say like mending of fences, but that's some of where the conversations and some of the let's get on the same page, and like, what are you concerned about? Well, this is what I'm concerned about. Well, we're concerned about. I mean, all of these things maybe meetings between teammates, maybe meetings between coaches, maybe a realistic understanding of where everything is at. What has changed? What's this new offense going to look like for you? Is this the best fit for you? Whatever. And I think that everybody's kind of tried to be very intentionally slow to get to this point, but the head coach is excited, and that's all that matters. And I think that the player this is where he wants to be, and he was given that opportunity. And I don't really think that it's going to cost you anything substantial or anything like that. This isn't a big NIL thing. That's the other thing that's crazy.
First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Imagine watching your favorite team at the college basketball tournament live, feeling the energy of the crowd, witnessing unforgettable moments. We all know there's nothing like experiencing a big game in person, and getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Gametime comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. With Gametime Picks, curation makes it even easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the one and only lowest price guarantee, which means you get the lowest price, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Plus, peace of mind with seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and the lowest price guarantee. You can book with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed.
That's the other thing that's crazy, is like that graphic and all that. People can believe whatever they want. I feel like my info or my knowledge of this is pretty darn accurate. This player has never really been about NIL or anything like that. Okay, at least with Tech's issue or Tech's relationship with him. He had NIL deals. He had the brand thing with Adidas. He had some other stuff in town that was that was smaller, that I think added up and everything like that. But this wasn't somebody demanding and commanding top dollar, this and that. And I can't pretend to know what all he was offered out there in the portal. I'm sure there was some that tried to throw a ton of money his way. But as far as Texas Tech goes, this is never what this has been about. He just always liked it here, and he felt like he had a good relationship with the people here. And heck, man, now that he showed up, the facilities are a lot better than when he left, technically, because I think that building wasn't even open or finished yet. Whenever he technically when he left,
I'll take a sabbatical again. Let's see what else we can get.
No, please don't. Yeah.
Shows up every time.
I don't think your Twitter account or my Twitter account can handle any more of the. Yeah, but yeah.
Well, let me ask. Before we get out of here, can I just ask, and I know we can't speak in absolutes, we're not there in lockstep with the guy or monitoring what he's doing. Is there any chance we're challenged by a locker room problem here? I mean, you mentioned the teammate meeting possibility, and I'm really curious about the player reaction to this.
Yeah, I mean, I me too. I think that's a very fair question to ask. But again, I don't think that this is allowed to get to this point if that was thought to be a problem. There may be some people that, I mean, because I think initially, I think he's going to walk in kind of as a scout team guy. I think he's going to work his way up. I think that this was kind of part of the understanding. I think he understands. I think they understand. I think that there's just going to be a slower ramp up here. But again, this is where talent takes over. And if he'll do the right things and start picking things up, he could end up passing people sooner than later if it starts to click. But I don't envision maybe at worst some guys are not they're not as good of friends as they maybe once were. Maybe, but I just don't want to believe that, or I don't think it gets to this point. I don't think Joey would have gone that route had he had any questions. Because some of the guys that I would say, because you know who the biggest question. I mean, this would be natural, but the biggest person I would wonder about is Barron. He was directly involved in his recruitment. He was directly involved in coaching him on the field last year. We remember all these conversations in the media availabilities back in August. And if Barron's okay with it, then everybody else should be too. So
sure.
yeah. But that I don't now is. I'd be willing to bet you, and I could be wrong. I could be wrong here, and maybe it's just a coincidence. But the fact that this announcement comes out on a Sunday, 48 hours after the portal window closes, maybe there would have been a young wideout that would have been like, "Damn, if I'd have known this, I'd have hopped in." But you can't do it now. Can't do it now. So, and that's just me trying to talk through all the different possibilities out there of what could be going on, the timing of things. It could have no bearing on anything whatsoever. But I wonder about that, because had he come back a week ago, I would have wondered if one of these younger wideouts, which you already had LJ Johnson get into the portal, so that didn't even factor in. And maybe they saw him around the deal that week, and maybe there's a direct correlation there or none whatsoever. I have no idea, but he does fill a need. I mean, there's some holes in the back end of that receiver rotation, and a lot of unproven, and he is now one of those. I mean, Micah Hudson is just like the rest of them. They really haven't played and done a whole lot yet. And then you've got these guys that are starters and everything. And so anyway, we'll see. Because I mean, think about it. You're about to. I mentioned that the outside receivers. I mean, John Carlos Miller and Terrence Carter are going to walk out the door. I mean, you're loaded up with seniors this year, so it's going to be really interesting, like what everything looks like a year from now.
His story, his path, just what he is, his profile as a prospect, which is all he's been so far, is kind of a light we can't look away from. Will it be a light of redemption at some point, or is it a light of an oncoming train? I guess time will tell. But for a guy who had 8 catches, 0 touchdowns a year ago, he has gotten his money's worth out of being discussed on this podcast, and I'm sure plenty of others. So we understand that, but he's unique unto himself in that regard.
And I'm probably short-sighted, when I talk about players and everything, because there's one other guy. He's probably pretty important in this whole process. I mentioned Barron. If Barron's okay with it, who else probably needed to be okay with it? Will Hammond. Because more than likely, Will Hammond will be Micah Hudson's quarterback, as their careers go. That's really, I could theoretically say maybe he's even more important in this situation than Barron would have been, like if we're talking big picture. But anyway, I just didn't want to forget to mention that, because I'm just trying to think back to last year, because there was a lot of, I think Will, and remember you'd hear all these conversations about Will doing all this extra work. I mean, when I was doing the coaches show, and like you'd have these defensive assistants, and I think I can't remember if it was Zarnell or CJ Ayu. I'm up there at Rudy's Barbecue on a Thursday night. Will Hammond, we look up, and Will Hammond walks in the back of the restaurant with his family. He had no idea this coach's show was going on. And like whoever was next to me, it was either Zarnell or CJ, goes, that's my quarterback. And I'm like, yeah, he's really good. And he's like, no, you don't get it. He is up there all the time. And one of the names mentioned at the time was he's up there working extra with Micah. And then at some point that didn't happen, whether it was injury or whatever. But Will, I think, had a lot of, because they were freshmen together. They're in the same class. They came into this thing together. So anyways, sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack it, but Will Hammond would factor in heavily into whatever thought. And I can't imagine Will was like, yeah, I don't want him back. No, it's just not Will Hammond. That's not how he rolls, man. He would, he's going to want as much around him as possible. And that kid he's very mature. And so so anyway, we've talked through that. I just want to make sure that we were trying to give everything proper context.
Micah Hudson is a Red Raider again. We're just hoping he factors in any way at all at this point in time, but a little while to process this before we get back around to camp activities and eventually a season. Chris, appreciate a little extra time on the fly here today, and we'll see you for the next one.
Happy Sunday, people. Cowan, appreciate it. These are, if any other 5 stars want to return back home, man, sign us up. We'll hop on here and discuss it. Robert Johnson, where you at? That's a long time ago.
Oh, these boys. This is the pair that's done a number on them folks down in South Texas. And Micah Hudson proven to be a man after all, much like ourselves, Chris.
He did A&M.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Goes down and is repulsed by the Bryan College Station area. It's people and its surroundings. Who among us, right?
Yeah. Robert Johnson and Micah Hudson both did the Aggies the same way, I guess, in some ways. Yeah. How about
They're
that?
just like us. Yeah, we got to appreciate that at the end of the day, either way. All right. Yeah. Appreciate your time and appreciate you as always, and everybody for being out there. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks to the everydayers for always standing by just for a moment like this. And thanks to the Matador Mob as well for some quick thoughts on the re-edition of Micah Hudson. Think that's a word. Either way, no time to sort it out. This conversation is over. Appreciate you always and hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.